Oh, yes.
Mr. Biegenwald ever use any of the tools down there?
Yes.
What did you do down there?
Well, aside from routine maintenance on the house, I was involved in the construction of weapons, maintenance of weapons, alteration of weapons, experimentation with ammunition types, that sort of thing.
Do you know what Mr. Biegenwald did with his weapons?
What he did with them?
Well, let me rephrase it.
He kept his
No,
weapons.
I think we object at this point.
I said, let me rephrase it. Do you know where Mr. Biegenwald kept his weapons?
Yeah, in the cellar area of the house.
Do you know whereabouts?
Well, specifically behind a brick wall at the rear that blocked off what used to be a set of outside steps coming into the cellar.
Found in your area of the house were 3 pipe bombs. Is that correct?
Yes.
What were those for?
Firecrackers.
Well, what do you mean by firecrackers?
Literally, firecrackers.
What were you intending to do with these firecrackers?
Set them off at the right occasion.
Somewhat.
At some occasion, the right occasion.
In connection with your testimony here today, have you ever discussed this with Theresa Smith at all?
No, I haven't.
Anyone from the prosecutor's office, anyone from any police department, anyone from any law enforcement personnel at all ever tell you what to say?
No, I haven't.
Judge, I would have no further questions.
The cross-examination of Darren Fitzgerald by defense attorney Louis Diamond will continue tomorrow in Freehold. For TV 34 News Brief, I'm Bob Hartman reporting. Good evening. I'm Bob Hartman for TV 34 News Brief. The prosecution in the Richard Biegenwald murder trial rested its case this morning in Freehold, New Jersey. Defense attorney Louis Diamond then called Terry James, an inmate of Trenton State Prison and believed to be a schizophrenic, to the witness stand. James testified that Darren Fitzgerald, witness for the prosecution, talked to him about the murder of Anna Olesiewitz.
The question was what Mr. Fitzgerald said to you about things he did outside the prison. Is that the question?
Yes, Your Honor.
That's the question. Outside the prison.
All right. I would phrase the question. A couple of times he discussed certain activities that he did outside the prison of a criminal nature.
Is that the right answer?
Sure.
Well, I'm trying to do the best I can. What happened was, I came to work in the kitchen one day.
If you can avoid
I'm
all
trying.
the remarks leading up to it, we'd like to know what he said.
I understand.
Okay.
Okay, well, he showed me a clipping, which it was a clipping about the victim, Anna, and he had told me that this particular person he had killed.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you on that. Slow down and relax.
All right. He showed me a clipping of this girl, Anna Olesiewitz, I believe her name was, and he had told me that this was one of the girls that he had killed.
And did he tell you how he killed her?
He shot her.
And did he state whether or not he had any particular reason for doing that?
Yes, sir.
What was the reason?
He said he enjoys it.
Tomorrow, both the prosecution and the defense will make their final statements. Then the case is in the hands of the jury. Good evening. I'm Bob Hartman for TV 34 News Brief. Yesterday, both the prosecution and the defense made their final statements to the jury in the Richard Biegenwald murder trial in Freehold, New Jersey. Richard Biegenwald is accused of murdering Anna Olesiewitz of Camden in August of 1982.
The most crucial thing here is that you're asking a man to be judged by you for the commission of the worst crime that he can be charged with, murder. You're asking a man to put his hands in your hands his very life. At this point, remember one thing. All we have, it all boils down to a very simple issue, which I told you in the beginning. You have two people who say he said something. You have other people with less motive to lie saying that Fitzgerald said the exact same thing. If you weigh them, it's certainly far outweighed. The evidence is consistent with the fact that Fitzgerald's statement is the true one. I tell you right now, if you have that, if you use your logic, what's consistent with the facts that you know, you must in effect come to the conclusion that you have a reasonable doubt in your mind as to what happened here, as to whether or not the burden of proof has been sustained by the prosecution through their own witnesses. If you weigh those things, sit there and discuss all the factors, you see the scale never budges beyond that one point, and it keeps on going further down on the other side, and that's reasonable doubt. And with that reasonable doubt, the only verdict that you can come to is not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Diamond.
Thank you.
Mr. Fagan.
Thank you, Judge. You people have been around for a lot of years. You use what you've learned. You use your common sense and you use your logic. And ladies and gentlemen, if you examine this evidence, you examine the testimony, it supports every piece of evidence in this case. I'm just going to ask you now to use your logic, your common sense when you go back in there. And if you do that, the state, I think you have to agree, has proved this case beyond any reasonable doubt that Richard Biegenwald killed, murdered Anna Olesiewitz, whether it was the 27th or the 28th of August, 1982. He possessed a weapon on that date. He possessed this weapon. He possessed this with the intent to use it unlawfully, to kill somebody. And he did. And he possessed weapons on January the 22nd, 1983, when he was arrested, and he possessed drugs on that time. I ask you to find him guilty of each and every charge. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fagan. We've all been sitting for quite a while. I think we benefit from a short break, so if you just want to retire to the jury room for a few minutes, we'll stretch and then come back, and at that point I'll explain the law to you so that you're really not...
The jury returned to the courthouse at 9 a.m. this morning after being sequestered for the night. At about 10:15 this morning, they returned a guilty charge on all 5 counts on Biegenwald.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, have you agreed upon your verdicts?
Yes, we have.
Are your verdicts unanimous?
Yes, they are.
As to the first count, charging murder of Anna Olesiewitz, what is your verdict?
Guilty.
As to the fourth count, charging possession of a weapon for an unlawful purpose on August 27, 28, 1982, what is your verdict?
Guilty.
On the fifth count, charging possession of a weapon without a permit on August 27, 28, 1982, what is your verdict?
Guilty.
On the ninth count, charging possession of a controlled dangerous substance on January 22nd, 1983, what is your verdict?
Guilty.
On the 10th count, charging possession of a weapon without a permit on January 22nd, 1983, what is your verdict?
Guilty.
The trial will continue tomorrow in Freehold, New Jersey, as they will decide whether Richard Biegenwald should face the death sentence or not. Earlier this morning in Marlborough Township, William Edmond, a dangerous mental patient who has been acquitted of murder by reason of insanity, was transferred back to Marlborough Psychiatric Hospital. And for the second time in 2 weeks, Brenda Schwartz and her citizens group were there to protest.
You were here last Friday, and I thought you had some success, but I guess it turned out bad.
No, it didn't turn out bad. We were overruled by the judge who held his ruling that Mr. Edmond was to be brought here. What has happened since then is we've picked up a lot more public support. A lot of people that weren't aware of what was going on are now aware, and we're getting support from everywhere, including our legislature.
And who's going to be here from the legislature?
We're going to be meeting here today with Marie Mueller, John Bennett, State Assembly people, and Senator Gagliano, as well as Mayor Saul Hornick from Marlborough.
State Assemblyman John Bennett, Assemblywoman Marie Mueller, and State Senator Gagliano are doing all they can to help.
John, you grew up in Marlborough Township, and how do you feel about this?
Well, the whole procedure that's being followed on the courts and by the judges is one that we have to take issue with. I think that we're losing sight of the rights of so many people here, not only the community, but who's going to be responsible for protecting the patients against themselves and against each other in a minimum security facility when we're going to be transferring people that need a one-on-one maximum security. This hospital was never built nor designed to have that type of a patient put here. And I think that we have to not only protest the specific removal and placement of Mr. Inman here, but we have to protest the overall policy of possibly bringing additional ones here.